The billionaire CEO sat alone at his wife's grave. A single mom asked if he needed a family. The rain had turned the cemetery paths silver. Elliot Grayson sat alone before his wife's grave, his black suit darkening at the shoulders, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the wet grass. He had brought an umbrella, but it lay folded beside him, useless. Maybe because opening it felt too practical. Maybe because grief, after 3 years, still had a way of convincing him he deserved to be uncomfortable. There was no driver waiting at the curb, no assistant hovering with a schedule, no security guard pretending not to watch him break. For once, the billionaire CEO of Grayson Harbor Group looked like no one important at all. Just a man sitting in the rain with a bouquet of white flowers and a wedding ring he still turned with his thumb whenever he did not know what to do with his hands. The stone in front of him read, Margaret Maggie Grayson, beloved wife, beloved friend. Elliot looked at the name until the letters blurred. We won the Charleston deal, he said quietly. His voice was steady in the way voices became steady when they were holding back too much. You had hated the champagne they served. Too sweet. You had smiled politely and then whispered something rude into my ear. The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. Then it vanished. Mother still hasn't changed your room. She pretends it's because she respects memory. I think she's afraid if she moves one dress, the whole house will have to admit you're gone. Rain tapped softly against the leaves overhead. Elliot lowered his head. I still haven't sold the boat. That sentence broke something in him. The boat had been repaired after the accident, because insurance companies and investigators liked things catalogued, restored, explained. But Elliot had never stepped on it again. Maggie had been on a charity trip that day, delivering supplies to an island community after a storm. He had missed the trip for a board emergency. Of course he had. There was always a board emergency. There was always one more call, one more signature, one more reason to believe love would still be there when work finally loosened its grip. Elliot pressed his hand against the cold stone. I'm sorry, he whispered. The words were old, worn down, useless from overuse. Still, they were all he had. A few rows away, Clara Bennett held her son's small raincoat hood in one hand and an increasingly wet bouquet in the other. Or she had held her son 5 seconds ago. Noah, she called, keeping her voice low out of respect for the graves. Noah Bennett, if you are naming worms again, I am resigning as your mother. No answer. Clara closed her eyes. Her 7-year-old son had inherited curiosity from both parents and common sense from neither. They had come to visit Aaron's grave, as they did every few months. Noah had decided his father needed a really brave rock, because flowers died too quickly, and rocks, according to Noah, were better at commitment. Then he had vanished between the rows. Clara moved carefully across the wet grass, scanning for a yellow raincoat, small backpack, or a boy crouched over some geological treasure with the focus of an archaeologist discovering breakfast. That was when she saw the man. He sat several rows ahead, alone under the rain, one hand on a grave as if he were waiting for the person beneath it to answer. Something about the stillness of him made Clara stop. She had seen grief before. She had worn it in public places, in grocery aisles, in school offices, in the exhausted space between paying bills and telling a child his father was not coming back. But this man's grief was different only in shape, not substance. Loneliness had made him look smaller than his expensive suit. She only saw a person who had everything around him quiet and no one beside him. She meant to walk past. Then he tried to stand. He had been sitting too long. His knee buckled slightly, and his hand slipped against the wet stone. He caught himself, but not before Clara stepped forward and opened her umbrella over both of them. He looked up, startled. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rain drummed against the umbrella. Clara realized too late that she had just inserted herself into a stranger's most private hour. I'm sorry, she said quickly. You look like you were about to fall. I'm fine. It was the kind of answer adults gave when Fine had clearly left the premises. Clara should have nodded and walked away. Instead, exhausted from the rain, from motherhood, from graves, from watching people pretend loneliness was polite, she heard herself ask, Do you need a family too? The question landed between them like something breakable. Elliot stared at her. Clara's face went hot. That sounded less strange in my head, she said. Actually, no, it sounded strange there, too. His expression shifted, not quite confusion, not quite pain. She tightened her grip on the umbrella handle. My son asked me that once, she explained. We had an elderly neighbor who ate dinner alone every night. Noah wanted to know if people could run out of family and need to borrow some. The man looked back at the grave. For a long moment he did not answer, Then he said very softly, I had a family. I'm not sure I still know how to be in one. Clara felt the honesty of that more than she wanted to. Before she could respond, Noah appeared from behind a nearby angel statue, triumphantly holding up a small gray stone. Mom, I found one with a stripe. That means it has character. Clara exhaled in relief and irritation. Noah Bennett, I aged 7 years. Noah noticed Elliot and immediately lowered his voice, because he was strange but not rude. Then he looked at the gravestone. Maggie, he read carefully. Clara winced. Noah, he placed the striped stone near the white flowers. This can be Maggie Rock. It can keep the flowers company after they get tired. Clara closed her eyes. I am so sorry. But Elliot laughed. It was quiet, rough, and surprised, as if the sound had been locked somewhere inside him, and Noah had accidentally found the key. No, Elliot said. I think she would have liked Maggie Rock. Noah nodded solemnly, pleased with his work. At that moment, an older cemetery employee passing with a cart slowed down. Mr. Grayson, he asked. Do you need assistance? Clara froze. Grayson. Elliot Grayson. The name arrived with headlines attached. Billionaire CEO, Grayson Harbor Group, Boston's widowed shipping magnate, the Maggie Grayson Foundation. Clara stepped back at once, pulling Noah gently with her. I didn't realize, she said. I'm sorry. We didn't mean to intrude. Elliot saw the distance return to her face. He had watched it happen 1,000 times. The moment people stopped seeing him and started seeing the name. But this woman had asked him if he needed a family before she knew he owned anything that mattered. You didn't intrude, he said. Clara looked uncertain. People ask me about acquisitions, he continued. About donations. About what Maggie would have wanted for the foundation. His eyes returned briefly to the grave. No one asks whether I still know how to go home. The rain softened around them. Clara did not know what to do with that kind of confession from a man she had known for 4 minutes. So she did nothing dramatic. She only held the umbrella steady until he had his balance. Then she lowered it and stepped back. We should go, she said to Noah. Noah waved at Elliot. Then, with the seriousness of a child offering logistical grief support, he asked, Are you going to sit here by yourself next year too? Clara touched his shoulder. No. Elliot looked at the grave, then at the boy. I don't know. Noah considered this. If you do, you should bring snacks. Crying probably uses energy. For the second time that day, Elliot laughed. Clara saw it then. Not the billionaire, not the widower from the articles, not the man wrapped in the mythology of a dead wife and a powerful name. She saw a lonely man who did not need admiration. He needed to be seen. And as she walked away with Noah's small hand in hers, Clara had the unsettling feeling that the questions she had asked by accident might not be finished with any of them yet. 3 days later, Elliot Grayson walked into the Willow Creek Community Library.